back to Oliver Rain Knits. My name is Tracey and this is episode 4 and the first episode of 2023. I hope you all are having a good beginning of the year and enjoyed a great holiday season with some relaxing, maybe some new projects, and some quality time with loved ones. We had a great holiday season here. We enjoyed our Christmas and New Year's with some family. Our daughter came home for Christmas and we were able to relax and catch up. For New Year's, we went out for dinner with some friends and there was lots of laughter and lots of champagne, which both of those are my favorites. So it was a really fun time. I'm not sure how everybody else copes with the turning of the year, but I always find myself in a bit of a slump. I think part of it is that during Christmas and New Year's and that weird time in between the two holidays, there's no real schedule. Typically, everyone is rushing around to get Christmas stuff done prior to Christmas, and then routines, especially if you are off of work, are completely obliterated. Lots of sleep-ins, late nights, erratic meal times, rich foods, maybe a little overindulgence in wine. But those are all really great things, but they wreak havoc on a person such as myself that thrives on routine. So since the beginning of the year, I've really struggled with trying to regain my sense of equilibrium. Like I said, I've been in a bit of a slump. I am really looking forward to getting back in the swing of things a little bit and eat well and get back into working out. And hopefully I'll get over this slump really fast. But enough rambling. I am here to talk about the knitting. So I hope you're prepared to settle in and see what I have to share. The very first object that I'd like to share today is what I'm wearing, the Ranunculus. This is something that I talked about a few episodes ago, and I made this sweater using yarn that I purchased at the Edmonton Fiber Frolic in November. It was a really great event, and I had a really great time spending time with friends, and originally had earmarked this for my mom's Christmas sweater, but once I started working on it, thinking about how I acquired the yarn and the story behind it, I realized that the yarn had to remain with me. So I completed the Ranunculus probably at the end of November, and I finally washed and blocked it this week, and I wove in all the ends. So I finished the knitting in November, but I actually didn't completely finish it until probably about 3 days ago. This Ranunculus, I think everybody probably is aware of the pattern. The designer is Midori Hirose. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it. And the yarn that I used is Long Way Homestead. It's a Targhee 2-ply worsted in the natural colorway. I bought 6 skeins of this yarn as well as a green, and I thought maybe I would make a color work sweater, but in the end I only used 3 of the skeins of natural, so I have 3 of the natural and 1 green left over, and I think I'd like to make some type of color work sweater now that this one is done. I'm not sure what pattern would work. The Ranunculus is made on 6mm needles. So I think if I go up to a 6mm needle, I can probably make any color work sweater work, any pattern. So if anybody has any suggestions, I am completely open to them. This sweater did grow a little bit when I blocked it. So it is a little bit wider than it was before I blocked it. I actually think I would prefer a little bit more close fitting, but this is how it blocked out. It is really comfortable. It's not scratchy at all, which makes me happy. My skin is sometimes sensitive to a little bit of plant matter that can remain in minimally processed wool, but I love it. I don't think the color is actually that bad on me. I was worried that it would wash me out a little bit, but it's such a great sweater, and I just love the feelings that I have when I put it on. It reminds me of friendship and maybe a reawakening of the Canadian wool industry. Maybe that's a little bit lofty goal, but I think of Anna and her warmth and her knowledge and her passion for Canadian wool when I wear it, and it just makes me really, really happy. So that is my ranunculus. The next object I'm going to talk about is my mother sweater. I know you're all waiting with bated breath on what happened with my mother sweater. I finished it. I think I finally cast it off the morning of December 26th. Maybe it was the afternoon. I soaked it and blocked it, and it was ready for me to give to her when I saw her on December 28th. I did end up making the Oxa sweater by Caitlin Hunter of Boyland Knitworks. And I was a little worried that I was going to run out of yarn, and all the yarn stores were closed at that time. So I think maybe I could have made it a little bit longer. I don't have the actual sweater because I did gift it to my mother, but I will insert a picture of it, hopefully next. I'm still working to learn how to edit these videos properly, so please bear with me. I ended up using almost 9 skeins of the Woolfolk bar. That is 100% merino in a chain net construction. It is such a soft yarn, and my mom, I think, really liked it. She tried it on, and maybe could be a little bit longer. In the end, when I got home, I realized I had a whole extra skein of this yarn. So maybe in the future, I'll take it back and add a few inches to the length of it. Who knows? I think part of giving somebody a sweater is just giving it to them with no expectation on how it will be received. I know that she loved it because I gave it to her. If she does choose to wear it, that is completely up to her. I think that, I think sometimes it's just nice when somebody thinks about you and puts love into an object that they make for you. So that is my Oxa sweater, my mother sweater. Will I make another one for her or anybody else in my family? Probably, but right now I am all about selfish knitting. The next finished object I have here is something that has been languishing in a drawer since probably November of last year. I spent a couple of years living in Vancouver, and then November, my husband and I bought a house in Calgary, and we decided to make Calgary our permanent base. So after living in Vancouver for a couple of years, I was a little worried about coming back to a colder climate. So I started casting on all the hats and mittens. These mittens were languishing in a drawer with no thumbs for well over a year. These are the Clax mittens, and I just think they're so cool. The designer is one that is relatively unknown to me, and I think more people need to check out her patterns because they are amazing, very well written, and very well laid out. The designer is Virginia Sattler Reimer, and the yarn is a suggested yarn that she used for her sample, Blue Sky Fibers Woolstock Worsted, and I used 2 colors. They look probably black and cream here, but it is a very dark green and a natural base. The one really cool thing with her patterns is she gives 2 different charts. One is dark and one is light. When you are trying to reverse the colors on a colorwork pattern, sometimes it can be a bit confusing if you want to switch the main color to a dark or main color to a light. To go back and forth, your eyes can get a little bit confused. I hope that makes sense. But she gives two versions of the pattern, so you can choose whether to have a light background or a dark background. And I think it's really, really a great idea. One other cool thing about this pattern is that it incorporates a Latvian braid. I've never made one before, and I think it's so pretty, and it was really, really easy. So please check out this designer, Virginia Sattler-Reimer. She also has a hat pattern that I made, and I didn't bring it up here, out of a bulky weight, I think Quince & Co. Owl yarn, I think that's what it's called, that looks like it's got little hearts in it, just the way the stitches work, and it's really cute too. These mittens rather, did grow a little bit when I washed them. They're still a little bit damp, so I'm going to take them off because I don't like the way that feels. They felt a little bit small before I blocked them, but I think now that they are just pretty much perfect. And I'm really sad that I waited so long to finish them. So those are my Clax mittens. And I'll be wearing them lots for the rest of the winter because it is still cold here. It's warmed up a little bit from the -40 that we had last time I recorded, but it's still not warm. The last finished object is finished, but I still have to add some stuff to it. And it is this fox. Isn't he adorable? He's not perfect. His legs kind of bow out the wrong way, and his eyes are definitely close together. I could have fixed up his nose, but altogether, I think he is so charming. Look at his tail, a little foxy tail. My mother-in-law gave me this wonderful gift for Christmas. This book called Knitted Animal Friends by Louise Crowther. She also gifted me this orange and cream-colored yarn. It is by Sheepies. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a Sheepy stone-washed sport weight yarn. It is 78% cotton and 22% acrylic. I don't love the acrylic. I really think that these little animals would benefit from 100% cotton, but that is the yarn that the designer, makes up these little animals with. And so that's what I chose. I do really like the heathered nature of it. I don't know if that's because there is acrylic added to it that gives it a little bit of heathering, or whether that's the cotton. I don't love doing intarsia, but this was really, really easy to do. It was pretty simple yarn management using separate balls of yarn for each part, and I love him. The reason why I'm not considering him a completely finished object is because he still needs clothes. He's naked. I am making him a pair of overalls, and actually, this is the front of the book. So this is the fox that I made. The pattern is called Charlotte the Fox, but I think this guy is a boy, and his name is Freddy. He is going to have a little pair of overalls. I really tried to finish them so I would have him at least partially dressed, but he is going to have a little pair of overalls. I was working on them last night while I was watching a movie with my husband. I have one of those neck lights, but it was a little bit dark and I really wasn't getting the pattern. So I think I figured it out. Next time I will show you Freddy wearing a cute little pair of overalls and some sneakers and a little t-shirt. Although he's pretty cute when he's just naked. So that's Freddy the Fox. Now, once I finish my mother sweater, I have to stop calling it the mother sweater because it doesn't sound very positive. But once I finished that, I was ready to cast on all the things. I cast on Freddy. He's now done. I also cast on a shawl, 2 shawls. One was a specific New Year's Day cast on, so I had to hold off on that. But I just couldn't not do something in the few days before New Year's Day. So I cast on this shawl. Oh, isn't it pretty? I have only done brioche a few times, but I just love how that looks on the screen. Oh, it is so pretty. I did struggle with the brioche a little bit, but I figured it out. Brioche is really not that hard once you give it a little time. I think lifelines would have been really helpful, but I was too lazy to get some yarn. So rather than doing that, I ripped out my stitching 3 or 4 times. So I'm not sure where the logic is in that. This shawl is called the Wake and Wave Shawl. The designer is Carissa Browning, and she is carissaKnits.com. I've used 2 different types of yarn. First 2 colors rather, are a company in the US called Sea Change Fibers that I purchased at a store called Firebird Yarns in San Francisco when we were there in June of last year. This is 85% merino and 15% silk in the silver and driftwood colorways. It is such a soft yarn. It's got a beautiful halo. I think it is would be considered a fine fingering. It is a little bit lightweight, but it is working really, really well in this shawl. It works well with the third color that I have, which is from Emilia and Philomene. It's the Josephine yarn, a fingering weight, 100% merino in the Stay Home colorway, and it is the bright pink. And they are just playing well together. I am just considering this a carry-along project. I take it with me to work on during my breaks, and probably if I go on any car rides, I'll take it because my other projects are a little bit more fragile because I'm working with Nudiden. So this is something that's going to take a little while. There are 3 different sizes in the pattern, small, medium, large. I would love to make the large, but I don't think I'll have enough of this pink. And something I'll talk about in a little bit, I'm on a little bit of a break from purchasing yarn because I have a lot, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The other shawl that I'm working on is glorious. I wound up all the yarn prior to New Year's Day, and I cast this on in the evening of New Year's, and it is beautiful. I'm just going to cover myself up. The screen is not showing this yarn. Oh, there it is a little bit. It is, I thought it was more of a yellow, but it is really more of a goldy, caramelly color. It's got so much dimension in it. Little bits of almost dark orange and gray. This is Nuditen yarn by Honor och Ar in Sweden. And this color is called let's see. Listen to my Swedish. Gyllengra. And I really, really love it. It is so soft. It is so almost silky. And I think it's going to be really lightweight, a really fun thing to be able to throw on when I'm cold, watching TV, or throw on under my coat. I don't know if I'll be able to throw it under anything because it is going to be quite a large shawl. The pattern, yes, the pattern is the Caroline Shawl by 100 Acre Wool. Bella is the designer, and I actually stalked Bella's Instagram waiting for this pattern. I applied to be a test knitter, but I think she had a lot of people that were anxious to try it. So I waited until she released the pattern just a few days after Christmas, and it's just so pretty. There are baubles and some really neat texture stitches. And in a way, this is sort of like a mystery knit along because I didn't even realize that there were some braids that you add on after. So this is my Caroline shawl, and I am loving it. All of these sections are repeated throughout the shawl, and once you sort of get used to it, I don't even hardly have to look at my pattern anymore. I think it is going to be such a beautiful, beautiful addition to my shawl wardrobe. I usually wear my shawls as blankets or maybe as scarves, but who knows what I'll do with this. Nutidin, as I've mentioned before, is a little bit fragile, and I am using it double-stranded, but I do find if I'm not paying attention, sometimes I'll tug the yarn a little bit too hard, like I just did, and broke it. However, the beauty of Nutidin is that you can just lay the two pieces together, wet it a little bit with saliva or with water, and it felts together on its own. There are lots of little mistakes, but I'm choosing not to see them. Nobody else will see them unless I point them out. This is my Carolyn shawl, and it's so nice. I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be huge. It takes about 300 grams of Nutidin, which I have, and I'm a little worried that I'm going to run out, but I still have quite a bit, probably another 100 grams to go, so I'm hoping that I will have enough. If not, I think I will just bind off and live with whatever shawl it turns out to be. So those are my current works in progress. I also have the little overalls that I'm going to work on. I'll show them. These are going to be Freddy's overalls. This is some leftover Mondine yarn that I had in my stash. These are little pants. I think he's going to be so cute. And then I have some cream colored yarn for a t-shirt to go underneath the overalls. Those are my works in progress and plans. Oh boy, do I have plans. I'm not going to talk about everything today because my plans change. I am participating in a colorwork challenge. It's a year-long challenge hosted by my friend Kelsey at KZip Knits. Kelsey has chosen a type of garment or item for every quarter of the year. So for the first quarter, it is a colorwork sweater. And I'm going to make a sweater using Nutidin. I don't have the second color, but I'm going to use this yarn. And forgive me, I do not have the color. It's terrible of me. I think I'm going to use a beige or maybe a silvery gray contrast color. And I'm making a sweater by Woodland Knits. Of course, I don't have it written down. Oh, yes, I do. More organized than I thought I was. The Barren Land Sweater by Woodland Knits. And I'm using Nutidin. And I'll keep you updated on that pattern. I also have my Yukon Campfire DK hat that I'm looking forward to casting on as well. Maybe I'll do that tonight, give myself a break from my other projects. Though the Carolyn shawl is really addictive and I'm having trouble putting that down and getting my other stuff done. Not just knitting things, I'm having trouble getting everything done, like housework and cooking and all the good things, the things that we need. So one thing I touched on just a minute ago, I'm taking a little bit of a break from buying yarn. I struggle a little bit with this because there are a lot of small yarn producers and yarn dyers that I really, really want to support. And I'm going to have to find other ways to do that for the short term because I have accumulated so much yarn in the last year that I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to go through it all, and it stresses me out a little bit. My friend Leanne at the Knitty Stew and I came to a goal, independent of one another, to take a break from buying yarn. We said the whole year, but I really can't see that lasting for the whole year. But one thing we both want to do is work down our stash. We both have fairly sizable amounts of Nutidin yarn as well as many other yarns. Leanne is much more organized than I am. She has all of her yarn cataloged in Ravelry. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that or not, or at least stick with it. I checked my stash earlier today and I only have 3 skeins in there, and none of those things have ever been worked up and none of those things are currently in my stash. So what we're going to do, we decided, because not buying yarn is not fun, we needed a little bit of a challenge to get each other motivated. So what we've decided to do is work on only yarn that we have existing in our stash. And we are going to work on a quarterly basis. Every 3 months, we will have a new milestone. So our first milestone will be in March. And our goal is to use up as many grams of yarn out of our stash as we can. All of our projects have to be made in yarn that is currently in our stash, and we will try to keep each other accountable. What I think I'm going to do is go through my stash, weigh everything, try to catalog it where I can, and try to aim for a specific percentage of the weight of the yarn that I have in my stash. I hope that makes sense. We have a rather clever name that Leanne asked her very clever sister, Wendy, to make up for us. She is quite talented at coming up for names of things. So we're calling it the Busting My Balls 2023. I'll put the hashtag up here. What we're going to do is every quarter, 10% of the grams that we use up out of our stash will be converted into a dollar amount that we are allowed to use toward a knitting item, whether that's yarn or a tool or a kit. We can also forward that amount to the next quarter and add that so we can maybe have more money to give to another project. So that is very loose, our little challenge, if anybody would like to join us. We're not going to be doing prizes or anything. We feel that this is just something we have to do between the two of us, but we understand that there's other people like us too that maybe want to work down their stash a little bit. I will continue to buy yarn, but I am going to do that in a more mindful way rather than just spontaneously adding things to my cart when I see something new and shiny coming up on my Instagram feed. I worry about having too much yarn to use in my lifetime. I know that that is a thing. Recently, I was on a Zoom meetup, and one of the ladies said she had over 30 years worth of fiber in her collection, and I don't want that. So this is my endeavor to work down my stash a little bit, be a little bit more mindful with my casting on and with my purchases, and go forward. I am going to try a new hobby in February. I have signed up for a spinning class with a local yarn store called Stash that is located here in Calgary. It's 3 classes over 3 weeks, and part of me hopes that I won't like it because I don't really need other hobbies, but it's something that I've been really pulled towards trying, and who knows, maybe I'll like it. But then, of course, then I may start accumulating fiber, so we'll see how that goes. I'm also hoping to get together with some girlfriends at the beginning or probably closer to the middle of February, just to have a girls' getaway where we can knit and just celebrate the time spent with one another. So those are my upcoming plans. I hope that you are all doing really well and have been able to work on some really fun projects, whether they're new or languishing or just something that you constantly have on the needles. I'm really, really enjoying making these videos, and I'm encouraged every time somebody says that they're inspired to try knitting. I can't wait to see how this channel evolves over the time. So thank you so much for watching today, and happy making. Goodbye.